World leaders are set to gather in Tokyo on Tuesday for the state funeral of Japan's assassinated former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. He was shot in July while delivering a campaign speech. Japan's current Prime Minister Fumio Kishida says the funeral will symbolise the power of democracy to triumph over terrorism. But in Japan, the event is facing fierce public opposition on a number of fronts. Our reporter Richard Kimber filed this report from Tokyo.
The state funeral for Shinzo Abe, Japan's former prime minister and longest-serving leader, is causing widespread social division in Japan between those who support the event and see it as the only right and proper way to honour his legacy, and indeed the words of Fumio Kishida, the current prime minister, who says this is an opportunity for global politicians to come together and show that democracy can always overcome acts of terrorism. And on the other hand, those in Japan who see this as a way of lionising the conservative and some would say nationalistic policies that Shinzo Abe pursued while he was in charge in Japan. Those were deeply divisive in Japan, although Shinzo Abe had widespread political allies around the world and forged international links, particularly with the United States under former President Donald Trump. He was not always so popular back at home because of those more conservative policies. Those include pushes for greater defence spending and indeed potential revisions to Japan's long-standing pacifist constitution. These are two things which are potentially deeply unpopular in Japan, and this funeral event is really exacerbating those concerns because many here do not want to see Japan return to what they think was Japan's controversial militaristic past, and they do not like the idea that the current government under Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, a protege of Shinzo Abe, seems to be heading that way, as the government is indeed doubling down on defence spending and is in talking of revising the constitution. Public anger is also directed towards the cost of this funeral event. The government had originally said it would cost around $2 billion. That number has now escalated to 5 times that much, as the government says the extra cost of security because of the number of foreign dignitaries attending has meant it's much more expensive to put on. But because of much of that money being taxpayers' money, it's adding to the distrust and frustration towards government from many in the public that this funeral is going ahead at taxpayers' expense and without proper consultation from the cabinet or from the public, with Fumio Kishida, the current prime minister, pushing ahead very quickly after Shinzo Abe's assassination, saying this was going to go ahead regardless. So while the funeral itself may just last a couple of hours, the widespread social division it's creating is set to last a great deal longer. Richard Kimber for SABC News in Tokyo.